If you've come back to retail for Season 3, there is a lot you need to know, including changes to solo shuffle, PvP gearing, and of course, a bunch of broken spells. And we're here today to get you immediately up to date, starting with the brand new cloak. And judging by the comments on Twitch and in our Discord, a lot of people are confused. So to answer the number one question, yes, it is worth getting for PvP. Don't worry though, because the process only takes around 2 hours, starting with a quest in Dornegal, and leading to a brand new zone where you will need to complete up to the 3rd chapter of the brand new campaign. The reason the cloak will be best in slot is not only because of its unique effects, which are nerfed in PvP by the way, but also because it allows you to juice out one secondary stat while also being upgradable to a higher item level than this season's conquest gear. And don't worry, upgrading your cloak is easy peasy and requires you to farm ethereal strands, which you literally get by doing any activity in the game. You can even lose skirmishes and still get this currency. Also, one thing most players don't know is that special gem thing you put in your cloak can actually be upgraded with crafting orders. Just search the word pure and head to the auction house with some gold in order to min-max. Also, if you run this script here that we have on screen, you will be able to upgrade your cloak from anywhere in the world instead of needing to go to the dedicated NPC. Other than that, gearing is pretty much the same as it was last season. The important stuff includes the fact that you will get 9 free crafting tokens early on, which you should spend on rings and a neck piece. And be sure to do the world PvP quest every week, prioritizing buying bracers, belts, and boots with your bloody tokens. Also, don't make the mistake of buying your conquest weapon because you will get it week 3 automatically by earning 2500 conquest. And as far as tier sets are concerned, yes, you will probably use at least your 2-piece, and you will probably need to convert conquest gear using the catalyst in the center of Dornegal. But keep in mind that this season, tier sets are allegedly nerfed by 67%. In any case, gearing is always a pain in the since knowing the exact stat weights for every spec is going to take some time and research. But if you're a skill cap member, you will automatically get in-game BIS lists and talent profiles for every spec in PvP. Signing up also gets you exclusive premium profiles for some of the best add-ons in PvP, which we've designed to improve your damage and awareness in Arena. Skill cap members also get access to hundreds of courses for the War Within, and as always, everything is backed up by a rating gain guarantee. Use the special discount link below to get started. Now, let's take a look at some of the most broken spells you need to be aware of. First up, we have a spell that is broken in a bad way. In case you missed it, Anti-Magic Zone is giga nerfed and now only offers 30% damage reduction, lasting a baseline 6 seconds. You will still want to knock players out of it if possible, but now there's a chance you can blast through it without any problems. Other than that, expect your experience against Death Knights to feel the same. After their rework, Frost DKs still have a nasty go with Pillar of Frost, and this season you might see more Deathbringer DKs since Reaper's Mark got a juicy buff. Pay attention to the stacks of this debuff, as once it hits 40, it will do an absurd amount of damage. As for Unholy, the cooldown to monitor is still Raise Abomination, which also happens to summon an army of horsemen when they're playing Rider of the Apocalypse. Once again though, keep in mind that all these DK pets can be CC'd, so be sure to use your AoE roots and avoid stacking on the same pixel as your teammates. As far as DH is concerned, there were literally 0 changes, and business will be as usual against this spec. As always, the main cooldowns to look out for are Metamorphosis and Essence Break, which we will remind you is a cone-shaped AoE spell. There's 0 good reason to stack on your teammates against a Demon Hunter. As for I-Beam, remember that it automatically procs a few seconds of meta, so you will want to use any micro CC you have, especially disarms, in order to shut down this small burst window. Now, when it comes to Druids, we need to remind you that Boomy got some crazy damage buffs, and we would also like to remind you that they have 2 charges of Incarnation, which makes things pretty tricky when it comes to trading cooldowns. And as far as Resto is concerned, we expect this to be one of the better healers later in the season. And just like other specs, they got a massive buff to Tranquility. In case you've been AFK for a while, there's no longer that Trank Immunity PvP talent, but don't let that fool you. Tranquility is ridiculously OP for its healing output alone. It's basically an AoE lay on hands, and good druids will obviously try and avoid interrupts by using it out of LOS. If you ever have the chance to stop it, you should do so immediately. Moving on to Evoker, this is a class which saw one huge change in 11.2. Nullifying Shroud is no longer a cooldown and instead will automatically proc for a few seconds every time the Evoker presses Verdant Embrace, which is a bit funky since this is more or less a rotational spell for preservation and is rarely pressed by the other 2 specs, who won't really benefit from this new talent. It's hard to say this version of Nullifying Shroud is better or worse than its previous version, but one thing that is different is that the buff can no longer be dispelled. Anyway, we highly recommend going into your Omnibar and tracking Verdant Embrace. If you're a skill cap member, we've already done this for you. Moving on, there is one spec we expect to be extra nasty this season, Marksmanship Hunters, who have a bunch of brand new tech centered around Explosive Shot. The TLDR is that Explosive Shot will give the hunter instant aimed shots, which will then instantly proc Explosive Shot for some massive potential burst. The two cooldowns you need to be aware of are Volley and True Shot, since they will both proc double tap, making the interaction we just talked about infinitely more deadly. Volley is fairly easy to spot since it puts a circle of arrows on the ground, and make sure you have your loudest air horn ready to track True Shot, as you will immediately need to CC the hunter or be fast to pop a major defensive once it is used. Arcane Mages are also one-tapping people this season, and there are a few things you need to look out for. First and foremost, Arcane Surge, which you probably know about, but what's new is that most mages are making the jump over to Sunfury, whose neat little perk is summoning a Phoenix to assist the mage once Arcane Surge is pressed, creating a massive cascade of downstream damage. Now, there's one huge mistake a lot of players make, and it's actually using their interrupt on Arcane Surge itself. This might seem a bit backwards at first, but all you do by interrupting Arcane Surge is give the mage one less kick to deal with during their cooldown window. In a perfect world, you should prioritize your stops for Arcane Missiles once Surge is actually pressed, as you will prevent a lot more damage. Speaking of doing damage, Fistweaver Monks are once again back on the menu after a change to Vivacious Vivication, which was changed to proc off of Rising Sun Kick, an ability you can't really use often as the traditional caster spec. Fistweavers are already a bit annoying to deal with, but remember that you should treat them more like a melee than anything else. Your goal is to kite them to avoid some of their damage while abusing CC as much as possible, keeping them rooted to limit their uptime. As far as Paladins are concerned, you should know that the Hallowed Ground PvP talent was removed this patch. This previously made their Consecration provide a nifty little freedom effect too. This was on top of a talent that made Consecration slow, which they still have. The reason we're telling you this is because this season Herald of the Sun will be more popular for Holy Paladin, and you'll want to stand out of their Consecrate whenever possible, since all it does is feed them extra healing. Speaking of doing more healing, Ultimate Penitence got Omega buff this patch, and is definitely worth outplaying if you have the tools to do so. As a reminder, Grounding Totem completely counters this ability, sending all the bolts to Frown Town. But if your name is Calvish, you could also vanish at the Ultimate Penitence cast, forcing the enemy priest to drop combat for a quick sap. Once again, this only works if your name is Calvish. And on the topic of rogues, you should definitely know that 2 out of the 3 rogue specs got some form of damage buff this patch. Assassination got giga buffs to all of its bleed damage, which means countering Deathmark is now more important than ever. As a reminder, Bop, Cauterize, Mending Bandage, and of course Stone Form are the go-to plays, and will make any Asa rogue die on the inside. Outlaw also got a massive buff to Killing Spree, but don't forget that Vanish is their real offensive cooldown since it allows them to spam out finishers like crazy, which have a super high chance to crit if they have the Shark buff during that time. As for Shamans, neither Ellie nor Enhancement changed very much this patch, outside of a few damage buffs here and there. Because of this, counterplay will be exactly the same, which means dispelling Flame Shocks against Ellie Shamans and having some micro CC ready for Ascendance when you're up against Enhancement in Arena. As for Resto Shamans, Healing Tide Totem was buffed by 100%. Know that this is a high priority totem to kill, despite the fact that it has a ton of HP. If you aren't using better Blizz Plates already, you should, because there's a totem indicator feature, and a list of totems you can enable to make Healing Tide much easier to see when in Arena. Better Blizz Plates also has the option to hide certain NPCs, including Wild Imps from Demo Warlocks, who you will probably see more of this season in Arena. What you need to know is that Infernal Bolt was massively buffed this patch. This is one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game, available exclusively to Diabolist Warlocks. If you ever see this spell being casted, treat it exactly like you would a Chaos Bolt. Finally, when it comes to dealing with warriors in Arena, we are expecting Arms to be one of the best specs in the game once again. Many Arms warriors will be playing Colossus, which has access to the obscure Demolish ability, which has one interaction you definitely need to know about. Demolish is a channeled AoE that deals massive damage to targets in front of the warrior, with the unique bonus that the warrior cannot be stunned, knocked, or gripped during this time. That's right, in order to stop the channel, you need to rely on other forms of micro CC, including disarms, scatters, coils, disorients like DB, and so on. Finally, let's take a look at some of the systems changes for PvP, including 2 changes to Solo Shuffle. Number 1, you can no longer get the same player on your team 3 times in a row. And number 2, Prop Paladins are no longer classified as healer. The 11.2 patch also buffed every tank in the game, so you might be seeing more of them in your lobbies for better or worse. Now, as far as no longer getting the same player in your team 3 times in a row, this will help everyone, as it means you won't get griefed nearly as much by someone going on a losing streak or someone rage quitting the lobby before it ends. And to end on a high note, at least this season's Gladiator mount actually looks cool. All it took was an army of people complaining to Blizzard, which is proof that bullying does indeed work. But no matter what your goals are this season, Skillcapped has your back with a rating gain guarantee. Yes, we literally promise you will gain rating or you will get every penny back. Why are we so confident? Because we have the largest resources of guides and tools designed to speed up your progress, including thousands of arena guides, and the #1 add-on for PvP, giving you a rank 1 level interface with the click of a button, including 2-in-1 support for PvE. One subscription covers all of our games. Just be sure to click the discount link below for an exclusive offer. For now, we want to thank you all for watching. See you soon.